Hello, my name is Barry Kroeker. I play second oboe in the Pennsylvania Chamber Orchestra, and this is an oboe instructional video on the topic of technique. This video has been produced in association with the Pennsylvania Chamber Orchestra. For more information about the PCO, please visit their website at www.pachamberorchestra.org. So, what do I mean when I say oboe technique? My definition for this video will be an approach to handling and fingering the oboe. We're going to talk about oboe assembly, hand position, oboe position, finger position, fingering, and at the end I'll give you a few exercises to help you improve your technique. Let's start off with oboe assembly. I've had this instrument for close to 40 years now. I've only had it in the shop a couple times. I think it's because I handle it well. So I'm going to teach the technique I learned from my teacher, Ray Still. When he was teaching me to put the oboe together, he wanted me to keep my fingers away from the rods. He didn't want me doing a lot of this with the key work because it can damage your keys. Things can get bent, misaligned, and problems happen. So I use a technique for assembly that prevents all that. Start with the thumb rest, the non-dominant hand. Place the thumb rest between your thumb and index finger. Gently curl your fingers around the oboe. Place your fingertips on the keys, and you've got a good solid grip on that middle joint. Then take the bell in your dominant hand, a gentle twisting and turning motion to align those bridge keys properly, and you're done assembling that portion. Next step, top joint. Transfer the bell and middle joint to the dominant hand. Grasp the assembly toward the bottom, near the bell and on the bell, and try to avoid touching any keys. So you've got a good grip, but again, you're not handling the rods. Seize the top joint by the neck. Align the bridge keys and gently slide the top joint into place until it's all the way down. All right, now you know how to put together your instrument. Try to do that every time. Hand position is next. I don't like to think of squeezing the oboe between my thumb and fingers. I like to think about balancing my oboe on the two thumbs. So one thumb is underneath the thumb rest, down here. You're not going to put it flat on the instrument. You're going to rotate that thumb around, rotate it around till it's roughly perpendicular to the instrument. And then you'll find that your fingers are right above the keys where they need to be. So again, don't start with a flat thumb. Rotate the thumb, rotate the wrist. That places your fingers over the keys where they need to be. Similar on the top joint. You're going to place your thumb not flat on the instrument, but rotate the thumb till it's close to perpendicular to the instrument. And again, watch that does. What that does is bring your hand around and places your fingers over the keys where they need to be. All right, so that's a good hand position. Thumbs perpendicular to the instrument. The principle is balancing, not grasping. And you can rotate your wrists to bring those fingers where you need to be. Your fingers should be curved and arched comfortably. Next thing is the oboe position. You may have seen some players with a very high angle. You may have seen some players in an orchestral setting, very low angle. I like to find a happy medium, right around 45 degrees to the plane of my face. So if you think of your plate, if your face is a plate, and you're aligning the oboe somewhere with that plate, about 45 degrees is going to work well for you. You'll also find that as you move the oboe up and down while you're playing, your sound will change. So listen for that sound and find the sweet spot where you're getting your best sound consistently. I think you'll find it around that position. Finger position is next. You want your fingers as close to the keys as you can get to them. They should almost be touching. That's the best way to cultivate a very efficient technique. The farther away your fingers are from the keys, the more space you have to travel to go from note to note, the harder you're making it for yourself. So I keep my fingers very close to the keys when I'm playing. All right, we've talked about all the basics, the balancing act, the thumb position, the fingers arched, curved, close to the keys. Now let's talk about what we do with these fingers. We always want to cultivate a very light touch on the instrument. And one way we can do this is through a simple exercise. So if you take your oboe out of your mouth, we're not actually going to play it for this exercise. We're just going to watch our reed tip. And we're going to finger different notes on the oboe. And our objective during this drill is to keep the reed tip totally still while we're fingering from note to note. It won't take you very long to realize just how much that oboe reed wants to jump around in your mouth while you're playing. That's going to create a problem for your stability of sound, and it may impact your embouchure as well. There's a lot of things going on. So basically, if you can keep that reed tip as quiet and still as possible, that will improve your chances of getting a great sound on the oboe. So work toward a technique that is so smooth and facile that that reed tip stays almost immobile, even when you're fingering some of the hardest passages. It's not easy, but it's worth experimenting with. It'll really improve your approach. All right, we talked about the light touch and a good exercise for that. Let's talk about other things to watch to see if we've got a good technique. We talked about the bottom octave key briefly, but just to reiterate, when I'm going between my bottom octave key and the lower pitches on the instrument, we don't need it, I use a thumb slide. Don't pick up the thumb and put it down again. It's inefficient. You're going up, you're going down, it takes time. Just work on that slide. If you've got the thumb properly oriented, you should be able to just rock it back and forth, on and off, by using your thumbnail as a kind of a gliding point for that octave key. That's one octave key. The side octave key is going to be a little bit different. Let me turn around so you can see this. The side octave key, I play with a roll. Let's take A to A. So I'm very slightly rolling my wrist. I hope you can see that. The wrist is making a slight motion downward. It's a rotation. It's like you're opening a door. And that motion is how you can play your A to A, let's say. So work on that. Work on that rocking motion with the wrist. That's the most efficient way to get from your bottom A to your top A on the instrument. And the same with the B and the C. You'll find it's a very, very efficient motion. Should help you get around on the instrument a little better. Another consideration, the half-hole key. When you're playing between the half-hole and the covered position on this top key here, use a little bit of a finger roll. I just roll the finger down. I don't slide it down. I don't slide the entire finger. I roll the finger. I generate that roll primarily from my knuckle right there. So if you just think about rolling that knuckle, you can do that. Practice that without even playing a note. But again, if you want to experiment with it on the oboe, and you want to move that finger just a little bit, just enough to expose the half hole. We're all about efficiency, light fingering. Excuse me. Okay, we talked about the bottom octave key, the half hole. Let's talk about some of the low notes on the instrument. And I'll move my oboe all the way up here so you can see what I'm doing. Let's take C, C sharp, for instance. If I've got some C to C sharp stuff to play, and I have time, I'll just rub my nose on the side here. A little bit of oil, that helps that fingertip slide very easily between the low C and the C sharp. Again, not a lot of motion. I'm keeping the fingers close at hand, and I'm trying to work toward a light touch that'll keep that oboe reed quiet in my mouth. Other ways to practice efficient fingering on the oboe. I recommend many two-note drills. Lots of us like to practice our scales, LOL, but they can get a little tedious. Additionally, there are certain fingerings that are very easy, and there are certain fingerings that are very difficult. Why not work on the ones that we have troubles with? It usually involves moving a lot of fingers up and down. Let's take the break, for instance, from 2-finger C to D with a half hole. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fingers going at once with that motion. That's a lot of things happening. And again, we try to make it happen lightly so the reed tip is still. But if we just practice that break fingering very slowly and very deliberately, we can find out just how far those fingers have to move to get there. I'll show you from the side so you can see just how small that motion is. You can almost touch the keys with your hands, even when they're not fully depressed. That's how close those fingers can get. Work on that kind of a finger approach. Also, another fun exercise I'll do, again, just to lighten my touch, is to kind of slur from pitch to pitch. Let's take an easy fingering, like A to G. You're just putting down one finger. See how slow you can put it down and what kind of a glissando you can make while you're letting the finger slide down slowly. Now, we wouldn't necessarily play that way in a concert hall, but we're trying to get a feeling on the oboe that's relaxed and consistent and efficient. This is a good way to do it. You can do it between any 2 notes. Let's take a more difficult pattern. Let's say G to E flat, where we're putting down the whole right hand. Now with that little drill, you'll notice I was getting a note in between. Sometimes I was hitting my G to E flat, sometimes I was getting an F sharp in there. That meant to me, that told me that my index finger was getting down there before my other fingers. That's okay. In fact, I could even practice it that way and then practice eliminating it. So I sort of work the kinks out by practicing it wrong. I get sluggish with one finger, and then maybe I want to try to put a different finger down. Let's say I was trying to go from B to G, where I got to get 2 fingers perfectly timed. Let me try to put the A down first. Now right there at the end, I tried to put the G down first. after a while, I tried to get them perfectly timed together, and I kind of cleaned up my act there. So you heard the fingering getting more clean as I worked on perfecting the finger motion. This is what technique's all about. It's just little things that you change to make things more efficient and more precise. Okay, we've talked a little bit about finger touch, finger exercises. Let's talk just a little bit more about the tough stuff. How do you practice difficult passages and clean them up on the oboe? One of the best things to practice, as you know, are arpeggios, those skip passages. We have to move a lot of fingers at the same time. One of the best ways to practice a running 16th passage, where you want to get as even as possible, is to actually practice it unevenly. This is especially effective if you practice the same thing for a while and it just doesn't seem to be getting any better. What you can try is playing the 16ths very irregularly as dotted rhythms. Let me demonstrate. So I do the long, short, long, short, long, short, long. Even though when I eventually get it worked out, I want them perfectly evenly. I'll also try it the other way. Not long, short, long, but short, long, short, long, short, long. I'll play that same arpeggio drill in that fashion. And so forth. And eventually, hopefully, when you work out enough like that, doing things with irregular rhythms, lightening your technique, hopefully you can be very facile. Yeah, I'm not real happy, but I'll work on it. I'll spend a little bit more time with the technique. So repetition is the key to good fingering, and we've talked a little bit about the oboe position and approach. Hopefully, some of these ideas will infect the way you're playing, and you might find yourself being able to get around the oboe a little bit better. I hope so. Thanks for watching.